If I unmute here and then I switch. Oh, I gotta unmute Discord. There we go. Okay. And it's got no visual. That's fun. Is that gonna. This was working a second ago. Heyo! Hi, Jeffrey. Why is it
Hello.
refusing to cooperate? Listen, it was set up perfectly. Um, I don't even know what. We're just gonna have to switch. That's fine. Um, Thank you, OBS, for working not very well. Gemma, we forgot to post all of the shorts that I said I'd post during our meeting. We were too locked in doing other stuff. Oh no, but this has a gross black. Does this have a gross black border, or am I going crazy? It looks fine on OBS.
I'm not seeing any issues, but
Yeah,
I guess I could see your OBS.
yeah. My Twitch looks a bit odd, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm just overthinking it. Um,
Yes, I can't see the Twitch feed. I'm getting spoon fed this because I don't understand computers.
your little hook you up with a side connection. Um, Tapping in.
Yeah, despite being actively involved with game development for the last half a decade of my life, I still need I still need the "here comes the aeroplane" approach to computer engagement.
Why am I dropping frames? All right, if that keeps why I order. Um, okay. OBS is just being a pain in the bum, and my camera's not auto white balancing, so I look kind of dark. It's fine. It's whatever. It's actually not a big deal. I'm just freaking out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream where everything goes right.
You missed before. I was on call with Zeb, and it was like gradually freaking out more and more. This gameplay seems pre-recorded. No, I promise it's not. Um, I was gradually freaking out more and more, and then I was like, "Oh, wait, everything's done. I'm fine." And then, of course, as soon as I hit live, it's like, "Well, this isn't working. Now we're dropping frames. Why isn't this?" I'm gonna stop freaking out. We're talking about Hell is Us today. Um,
That we are.
hear the show. Let's get this going. Um, Hell is me. Hell is welcome in. I don't have a good joke to follow up with. Um, Hell is all around us. Is that too
Hell is
similar?
the friends we made along the way.
Oh, that yeah, that's it. That'll do it. Um, yeah, Hell is Us is a video game. Recommended last stream when we did Hell is when no mum died. Oh, it feels that way. Um, excuse me. I thought I'd cleared my throat before stream. Um, yeah, you recommended this to me specifically, and maybe the broader audience generally last week during our game awards, right?
Yeah, although I had mentioned it to you previously when I
Hmm.
initially played it at launch. Specifically because you were talking at length during one of our actually very early streams. Because I remember we had this discussion over some of your Yakuza footage. And I was just hearing a lot of the things that you were talking about that you liked in game design, and I was going, "This sounds like Hell is Us."
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I guess for
So,
context,
oh
I
yeah,
finished the game yesterday and then played for a couple more hours to 100% it. So I've got the fancy Steam achievement. I feel like the image of like the chain breaking, like I've broken free. Um, I felt a little bit like I was trapped in this game. Um, yeah, I don't know why I got in my head. I'm like, yeah, 2 weeks, I'll finish it. It'll be done.
I feel
Uh
like that may have been the reason to a meaningful degree.
yeah. Yeah, I think I've maybe I don't know, I feel torn because I'm like we talked about this last time, right? I put this in the category of like this is a game I want to know nothing about and just sit down and play, which is what I did
Mhm,
for like Disco Elysium, and it worked really well. Where I don't I think that was like a week that I put down, and I just I did nothing but play Disco Elysium, and it was really good.
mhm, mhm.
But I think with this, I'm a little torn because putting like 31 hours down over 2 weeks really made me feel like I was taken prisoner. I felt trapped in the game world,
Mm.
and if I died in the game, I'd die in real life.
Yeah, I think that is sort of the thing is like I will say I have not played nearly as much as you have of this game, despite having originally played it at launch and recommended it to you. Um, Partially because I play a horrifying amount of games. Nothing can hold my attention for very long. Usually, uh, like no one thing will hold my attention for very long, more often than not. But uh, the thing that I will note about this specific one is that this isn't a like even when I am actively playing it, this isn't just one where it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna do something else now. This is one where I will play for a couple hours and go, I need a break.
Mm, yeah.
And I don't know if perhaps that element of that has impacted the experience here, but like this is a game with an oppressive atmosphere.
Okay. Yeah. I might let. How about I'll try to summarize it, and then jump in afterwards and sort of add and change what you think. So for
Yeah,
me,
sure.
Hell is Us. It's like Dark Souls mixed with an immersive sim in the real human world. So that is to say, we've got um, and maybe less Dark Souls and more a Souls like. Like honestly, this reminds me a lot more of games like the Jedi games with the ginger guy. I forget the name of them.
Orchestras
Um,
from Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order.
yeah. So it reminds me of that sort of game where you have these very distinct locations, and each location has sort of multiple puzzles and mysteries. And some of those will be self-contained in the level. You'll find the solutions in the same space. Some of them you have to go to different locations, which is where I sort of get that ImSim sort of feeling from. Um, the major difference being, it is not as open-ended as an ImSim is. There is one solution to each problem, and you just have to sort of pay attention and find it. Um, but the combat is yeah, it feels like that sort of like new Souls like where you have a handful of weapons with different move sets, you upgrade them. Um, it's sort of quite designed to be like one-on-one combat. Um, and yeah, it's set in like 1998, I think. It's in the late 90s, I'm pretty sure.
I feel like it
Um,
might have been 96, but you could be right.
so it's a really fun twist where I'm so used to these being like full fantasy sci-fi worlds. It's like no, like there's a photo with Richard Nixon that you can pick up. It would really shocked me. I was like, oh, that's a
Yeah.
real life human. Okay,
Yeah, in this location that you're playing footage from, I believe.
yeah, yeah. So that's my short and long summary of Hell Is Us. How do you feel that stacks up for your experience?
Yeah, more or less correct. Although, it's interesting. It's like you haven't said anything that I disagree with, but I would have said completely different
Yeah.
things. Because yeah, I definitely agree with the like Soulsy influence on the combat. If anything, I would most closely compare the combat to the Neo games, where it has the timed burst stamina management mechanic, paired with a really interesting, clearly sort of survival horror influenced system where your maximum stamina at any given time is tied to your current health.
Mm.
But by landing pulses, like perfectly timed boost things after landing attacks on enemies, you are able to restore your health in real time. And so you're sort of in this interesting like risk reward back and forth that really it plays to the strengths of like a survival horror resource management mechanic, but does that through this lens of soulsy, hacky slashy action RPG combat. And I've personally thus far found that really interesting and refreshing. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
regarding the sort of structural and world design stuff, yeah, you definitely hit the nail on the head in that sense of this exploring this world feels like a linear immersive sim where it's not leading you to anything, it's forcing you to pay attention to your environment and remember things and interact with stuff, but there does tend to be one answer. It's much more about the immersion on an experiential level rather than on a mechanical level. Uh, yeah, it's all of the immersive, none of the sim, if that makes any sense.
yeah. No, 100%. And they sort of preempt you that at the start. They say, there's no map, there's no, um, there's no quality of life stuff. It's you got to pay attention. They really, I feel like, I can feel that pitch coming through the most with the characters you can meet in the world. You can
Yes,
find
for sure.
survivors and other types of NPCs dotted around all the levels, and you can speak to all of them. Some of them will say things that are very suggestive as to an item that could help them in their current state. And so you can then go out of your way to find it, or if you've already found it, you come back and you can trade with them, give them the specific item they need, and you will sort of complete their quest. And they're specifically referred to as good deeds in the game. Um, you can eventually meet an NPC who you can say that you've done, not even say that you've done good deeds. You ask if you've done enough good deeds, and he'll give you rewards um, based on the good deeds that you've
Forgot
done.
about that guy.
Yeah, yeah,
My
yeah.
big break in gameplay was like my big break between like actively playing this game was right after meeting that guy. So I had blanked on that.
Yes, yeah. He's got a lot of other
Actually going to
stuff.
be very helpful next.
Um,
That's going to be very helpful next time I play.
oh, my Discord notifications. 1 second, 1 second. Sorry, Zeb, you are muted to stream. You're alright. That's my bad. Yeah, that's alright. I just realized that stream would hear. There we go. Sorry, we're back.
Oh yeah.
I just don't
Okay.
want
Okay.
to
Oh good.
gaslight viewers into thinking they're getting Discord pings. I forgot to mute it.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Jeffrey
But
played and you finished Echoes the End.
brilliant. That is another thing that I have mentioned is good and haven't finished myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that it has some rough edges, but yeah, it's got a distinct charm, and if nothing else, I appreciate the sort of mentality that the devs have put forward with how they've approached releasing a game. I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
Jeffrey. Excuse me. I don't remember if it was on call, Jeffrey, or if you DM'd me and just let me know that he had started it and was partway through and was enjoying it. Um, so yeah, appreciate
brilliant,
the feedback.
100%. Um, But yeah, one thing that I do want to touch on with Hell is Us,
Mm,
because to me it's been one of the major highlights, but I also am uh, sort of treading lightly here because you've played a lot more of the game than I have. Is From where I have played up to, I have really enjoyed how it has approached its philosophical and political themes.
mm. Yeah,
Um,
it's a big one. It's
Yeah. Oh, yes. It is. It is very heavy. It is. touching on some very sensitive subjects.
Very
Doing so,
topical.
yes, yes. It definitely, I feel like, does a good job of. It has strong enough world building that those topics feel abstracted in such a way that I have no question about the devs like playing with these concepts and getting quite creative and at sometimes quite intense with what they're willing to show of this story. But at the same time, because part of the core of the narrative conflict here is essentially a a fictionalized version of a real world setting inspired uh, conflict between different religious and ethnic groups and like
Yeah.
different sects.
So
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's obviously very reflective of a lot of very topical issues now. And because of that, even though the groups, like the groups in question in this world, are functionally completely fictional, there are still times where like one character will be talking about another character, and I'll have a moment of like, "Whoa, are they allowed to say that? Like, are they allowed to have a character say this in a game?" And then I went, "Oh, right, the group they're talking about isn't real.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess
These
like
are made up slurs."
the summary or sort of the narrative context is it is, yeah, late 90s. You are in a fictional European country called Hadia. Um this country has been sort of isolated from the outside world for thousands of years. Enough to the point where they sort of have their own religion with their own set of gods. Um and sort of over the past like 50 years or so, I think is roughly the timeline. There's, or maybe it's even longer than that. Essentially, the Palamists are like the traditionalist religion, ethno religion group, and the, what are they called? Selamites? Something like that. Um,
Shit.
sort of
I
took.
would have had it before you said that, and now I don't have it.
Apologies.
Sabinians.
Sabinians, thank you. They sort of took that traditional religion and sort of uh, the broad understanding is sort of made it more progressive, left some of the traditions behind, tried to make it, uh, to update it, and that causes a lot of parallels to real world instances. Where the traditionalist group sort of thinks that it is watering it down and it's blasphemy, and the sort of progressive group is claiming that it is keeping up with the times. But it's definitely more complicated than that. They're not. They're more than happy to show fully how both sides can interpret things differently, and they play that really well into the gameplay, where you get sort of like a map of Hadia, and there are different towns or locations you can visit, and they even show where the sort of border of the war that's happening is. Did I even mention that? War broke out, civil war between these two sides. There's so much going on in this game. Um, but
It's
so
a lot.
you can really see the difference when you go to one side of the country. You'll have Sabinian soldiers, and you can see firsthand. There's one town where they've gone through with flamethrowers, committed war crimes, taken people, captures, prisoner of war, and more war crimes. Um, and so when you're there and you
Oh,
list all the
yeah, actually,
Palamas
I should probably note
survivors,
something really quickly.
yeah, yeah,
I should probably note something really quickly. Because I should just note this game does touch on some really heavy topics and is not afraid of showing some full on war crime stuff.
yes, yeah,
And especially with how things are in the world right now, if there's anyone that is uncomfortable with that, first, maybe skip this game, but second, we're going to need to be talking about some things that in the current political climate could potentially be quite
Yeah.
quite triggering. So I'll just sort of draw attention to that.
Yeah. Good catch. I appreciate that. Because, yeah, content warning for the game. We'll try and keep it lighter on this stream, but yeah, I mean, when the game goes really hard into it, it can be hard to not you know mention it. Um, Jeffrey said fictional split between Christian Jewish denominations, and I assume Hadia is supposed to bring to mind Judea. Um, yeah, not it's
think
not one for one. Like you
Yeah,
could.
that's what I was going to say. There's
Mm,
a lot of different comparisons that you could make. It's drawing inspiration from a lot of different real world ethno-religious conflicts and like it's not an unfair comparison, but I wouldn't say that it's one to one, and you could just as easily make a similar comparison with other similar conflicts,
yeah,
both classical and contemporary.
yeah, they've done a really good job of sort of taking it all the way back in the history of the game so that they can you know you I guess it's almost like they can recreate it in this realistic way so that you can draw those comparisons, but they don't feel one to one because they have their own justifications for why certain actions happened. And that's sort of where I wanted to get to with the narrative is there's this really interesting modern day conflict that's happening as a result of things that have happened in the history of the game. And it's more than just that civil war. There's also this overarching sort of shadow world government organization who is playing in the background, pushing and pulling things. And then mixed in with all of that, you also have this supernatural entities showing up that you fight throughout the game. These limbic creatures. So it's this really big sort of mixing pot happening in sort of the current day. Fortunately, we have a rich, for lack of a better term, history to draw from it. Yeah. Um,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, so the game taking place in the current day and the past 100 years or so has a lot going on. A lot of elements mixing together. I mean, you've got civil war conflict, shadow government, and then these sort of you know, strange creatures. But then on top of all of that, you've got history from 1,000+ years ago, which is really crucial to the current story. And I think that's the part that maybe disappointed me the most is this constant reliance on these centuries old stories about how Haiti was founded, its kings, its queens, sabotage, these ancient organizations rising and falling. Um, I just got really disconnected from that. I thought the current modern day stuff was so interesting. As soon as I picked up a book and it's 2,000 years ago, the king of Haiti, I was like, I checked out. Have you seen much of that in your playthrough so far?
Uh, yes, but I have had a different experience than you.
Mm,
Um, and I will say, part of this is just that I have been fortunate so far for being quite intuitive about how I approach a lot of the reading.
hmm
There's been a lot of notes that I have read completely and gone, "Wow, that was really engaging." And then sometimes I will see one of those books that you read the full blurb for, and I look at it and I go, "There's a code on that," and I grab that and I move on with my day a little bit. Um, but more so than that, I have found myself very engaged with that world building aspect. 1,000 years backstory writers must be DMs.
yep.
It kind of does have that element to it. Like it's very much got that indulgent fantasy author sort of mentality to some of the writing. But for me, I really haven't minded that because it's done a couple of things for me. Firstly, it's made the current state of the conflict, as it is being approached in the game, the contemporary setting storyline feels so much more grounded because you're given so much context to understand the centuries uh, of bloodshed and prejudice that exists between these groups. And I I don't know if I've ever encountered anytime I encounter a like a an ethno-religious conflict between groups in a piece of entirely like between entirely fictional groups in fantasy media. There's always sort of this degree of uh, it feeling very like heavy-handed allegory, and a little bit what's the word, ham-fisted,
Hmm.
and something about how they approach the world building for this game just made this feel like a real thing that could be happening. I
Yeah,
and I
I
think like for that reason, I found myself so immersed in the ancient history stuff just as the contemporary setting stuff.
mm,
And uh, I don't know. There's multiple parts of the game where you get to explore these ancient ruins with all of these archives of how these people centuries old in these groups talked about their situation and talked about the other groups. And uh, yeah, something about like I don't know. I have a lot of interest in how a lot of like classical religious practices in the real world affect how modern religious groups conduct themselves.
yeah, yeah,
And maybe it's just because I have a personal curiosity for that topic, but it meant that when I'm getting to explore these ancient ruins and finding these like pieces of scripture that go, and to all those that are the non-believers they shall be flayed upon the rocks, and only you the true believers in Setharus shall, and it's like this is the stuff that is informing what's going on now, and it makes it feel so. In what I was talking about earlier, it feels uncomfortably real. It feels uncomfortably like a real thing that could be going on because it's so informed by these real world ethno-religious conflicts, while still having uh this interesting utilization of these supernatural elements that keep it from keep it from feeling like it's targeting anyone.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I feel like as well with that richness of the lore. Sorry, I've been talking for ages, but I feel like with that richness of the lore, for me at least, that's also something that ends up granting a degree of both groundedness and separation here, where it feels like they're not targeting any real world groups. They are establishing this setting's groups. They are making sure that you know the distinct cultures that exist in this world and how those have informed the current socio-political climate.
Mm. Yeah, I suppose I don't. My frustration isn't with the fact that it's there. It's more so the way that it can become critical to solving major puzzles. Jeffrey said, "I don't mind heaps of lore. I'm the kind of player that read all the books in Oblivion. Got to find every volume of the last Diagonian made." Um, yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at, right? I'm like, if it was just that the lore was this in depth and you were pulling from that 1,000-year-old history to sort of make these justifications and to sort of enrich the gameplay, I'd be all over it. But it's like there's so many areas where the puzzles are understanding what happened hundreds of years ago and like just getting really deep into that. And I think like, you know, this is just a difference in a single gamer's opinion, right? Like my
Yes.
preference is for the games where the modern day stuff is sort of what's dictating the main flow of it. So when I get to these sections,
Mhm.
you know, the same could just as easily be reversed. And I guess the way they do it is that some sections will be really heavily focused on the lore. Some sections will be really heavily focused on the current day stuff. And so like everyone gets a little bit of what they want and a little bit of what they don't want. Um, but nobody gets like just what they want. So, that's just one of those trade-offs I guess you have to make. I just hope they did that intentionally, I suppose, right? Like,
Well, I think they did. And I say this partially because you make the observation about like some people get what they want, some people get what they don't want. But for me, the interplay between these two settings, this element of the history and how that is impacting the modern day, and going back and forth between these contexts, is exactly what grants it that richness for me. And furthermore, I will note something that is very specific to my gamer experience here, so mileage may vary. But for me, I love when games have a, and again, this is very specific to me. I love when games have a very specific thing, like they have a very specific experience that they want to give you, and they want to make it that you can't miss out on that. And in this case, I say this as someone that now I need to confess something here, because and I especially say this. This is a confession because I am a writer, and on the games that we have worked on together, I have written so many of the optional notes that tell a lot of our story. I barely read notes in games. If I'm picking up notes in books, I'm very often not reading them, and that sucks because I love the idea of it and I want to be reading all the lore. I love the lore, but I will so often just be I want to press the buttons
mm,
and feel like I am progressing the game. And so, what I loved so much about the exact issue that you had here, that's the thing that made me love this game, because it made progression tied to engaging with the world building, engaging with that lore, engaging with the minutia of this story. So, for me, that worked extraordinarily. I also totally get why it could be frustrating. Like, I need to make that
yeah,
perfectly clear. I
yeah,
get where you're coming from. I just had the opposite experience.
yeah, yeah. I think I don't know. I guess for me, ultimately, it was like it's just too much. Like there's too
Mm,
many things going on, and so my brain had to discard one of them, and so it's going to be my least sort of preferred part, right? So
mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if there is a solution to it. I think this is just how one of the ways that the game has to be made. And depending on, a billion outside factors is going to determine if it was the correct way to make it at the time. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, this is also one of those things where uh, uh, it sort of leads into the conversation that you and I have discussed this topic a few times. This notion of should games be products? Should games be for everyone, or can you make a game for people that are going to like your game?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And and I think on that level, like I don't know whether I can say that this was the right decision, but what I can say is that I really see why they made the decision they did, and it feels right to me.
Mm. I guess like it is really cool that they got to put all of this together. Like I think I saw in the credits there was somebody credited for the full like world story essentially. So it's like you have the devs working on like the modern day stuff, somebody who's made the whole like backstory, lore, history, and then there was somebody else I think that was credited for like the look development. So I'm like, you've really like spoiled, as a creative, they got to have everybody contributing, um, which I think is just like the fact that so many devs got to sort of put so much into this and still have the game come out is really cool. Zeb, you shouldn't feel bad for not reading everything. I got brainworms that made me create an entire world for D&D with religion and history. Those same brainworms make me go, ooh, series of 800 plus page books. Don't mind if I do. Yeah. I mean, I resonate with you, though, Zeb. It's like, if it's not served to me in a super palatable way, it can get missed, and I feel bad because I'm like, oh, it could be so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I specifically mentioned feeling bad about it because of the multiple times that we have made projects together
Yeah.
where I have been the main writing all of the optional text person. And meanwhile, I'm skipping everyone else's.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's just one of those things that like we're seeing in the footage here. This is minus spoilers. The one of the sort of base of operations for the shadowy organization of which you have sort of co-opted. The drone and the jacket is sort of like the uniform for this group, and sort of gives you free reign with every area you go to.
Mm.
You can find some side stuff that's like, hey, if you see people dressed like this, just leave them alone. And I'm like, that's cool. Um, but yeah, in here, like this is where I was thriving. I was like, oh, this is where I want to be. Like learning about who's pulling the strings behind the Civil War and how they're, responsible, or not necessarily responsible, but how they are intertwined with these creatures that are being summoned. Um, and it's, I think that's why Control was such a favorite game for me, because it was all that, and all of the lore and like side information and notes and stuff was all presented in that way as well. Like the redacted documents, the SCP style, like here's the observation report. It's yeah, this area harkens to that, and so this was sort of the section where I got to have my little feast.
Yeah, and I actually think that's another interesting thing is just with what someone happens to be in the mood for at any given time. I know that you have been so in the headspace of Control, and this is a game that is half of the time it's Control and half of the time it's Dark Souls.
Mm.
And if you're more in a Control headspace, the stuff that feels like Control is just gonna feel better.
Especially when I'm getting like teased with it, like I'm in this like centuries old ruin fighting these monsters, and then they're like, "Ooh, here's like a weird like research report." And I'm like, "Huh? Wait, what do you mean? Where is that?" Plus for Control has the janitor who's always straight. Yeah. Oh, do we pivot to the characters? I've
Yeah,
got.
let's talk about the characters a little.
I am just not caring for the main character, the player character.
Interesting. I have fairly strong positive feelings about the main character for very specific reasons
Mm,
that I'm definitely going to need to get into some stuff that I would consider spoilers
okay.
for, because it's a particular moment that was just, to me, it was such a compelling reveal, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it frames something so compelling about this character's role in this story as its protagonist.
Okay, we'll get to that. I guess for context, um, so much of the narrative of this game is delivered by NPCs talking to you or picking up documents and notes. And then interspersed between that, you'll get cutscenes where the main character will speak and interact with others. The game does open with the main character being hooked up to some truth serum and a polygraph machine and being interrogated by this just, I don't even know if he's human, honestly. Just this weird like
Yeah.
Men in Black esque. And so the whole game is set up with the premise of, this conversation is taking place after all of the sort of content of the game. So when you die, call him the Melting Man. That is fitting.
It is,
um,
yeah.
if you die, you hear him be like, "Oh, you of course you didn't die there. What actually happened?" Um,
Which, actually, I will note, that was the moment that I started to like that storytelling device for this game. Because I do not usually like retrospective after the fact stories.
yeah,
Um, like, because for me it sort of ends up, you're sort of overplaying your cards in a sense.
yeah,
I mean, in a story where characters can potentially die, it's explicitly telling you this one doesn't, at least not for the main chunk of narrative.
Yeah.
But I really liked how this game has played with that concept structurally with things like the game over, where because my main issue a lot of the time with that sort of thing is little ludonarrative details.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I'll mention one occasion that was a weird pet peeve thing for me. Not with specifically a this is a weird aside, but I promise it'll make sense in how it relates to this
That's
discussion.
what we should subtitle these streams.
You're not wrong. Because there was the whole thing in Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice by FromSoft, is that it has an in-universe death system.
Yeah.
Like when you die in Sekiro, you're not
Shadow
like
dies twice. Sorry.
Mhm. You're yeah, you're not sent back to a save point chronologically speaking. Your character is oh, hold on.
Actually, don't remember.
Did I cut out horribly there?
No, no, you were good.
No. Okay. Cool. Um yeah, so sorry, lost my train of thought, need to get back on track. Yeah, so with the deaths in that game, there is a system in Sekiro where there's fairly ineffectually to your overall play experience. There's this degree where it's implied that like every time you die, you're resurrected with this energy, and to use this energy means that the disease is spreading. When you die in Sekiro, they remove the vaccine from everyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
kinda.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first time that I got frustrated at Sekiro was not a mechanical thing. It's when I fought a boss and then I died to the boss, went back to fight the boss again, and it replayed the introductory cutscene for the boss where the characters have a dialogue.
Ah, right. Yep. Yeah, because it's
Yeah,
breaking
just
that cool in world. Yeah.
yeah. And so when I was playing this game, when I was playing Hell Is Us, I was going, oh well, we know that the character survives to the end, so is there even going to feel like there's like, is it going to be distracting that I can die in this game, and does that totally break the structure? The fact that they thought of that, just for some reason, that just sort of flicked a switch in my brain, and I was like, oh, I like this. I like this premise now.
Interesting. It, to me, reminded me of very much of like Assassin's Creed, right? Where you are strapped into a machine that's reading your DNA, and
Yes.
you have to relive the memories, and if you don't do a good job of reliving it, then the sort of machine desyncs,
Hmm.
because it's straying too far from the sort of DNA history. And I think that's really cool. um this game felt too similar to that, but not in a positively interesting way for me. So I was like, when it kept happening when I died, and I'd get the little like, we gotta adjust the dosage, or like, you don't lie. I was just like, eh. And it's funny because I can also like have a comparison to a FromSoft game where I always thought the Dark Souls mechanic of going hollow when you die, and this idea of you you don't game over in Dark Souls unless you stop playing it, right? Like the idea that you are canonically dying, resurrecting, and trying again, and that's sort of like the a big part of the story is this idea of persistence, and having a goal to complete. And so I don't know. That's in my mind the Dark Souls approach to it is just so well done. And this felt like it went to the opposite side of that coin, and so that's why it didn't resonate with me as much. But I just love that we recognize the same aspects, but we go down like the opposite ends of it. Um,
I mean, honestly, I love that. Like, uh, that's making me so glad, regardless of like positive or negative experiences notwithstanding, is making me so glad that we get to discuss this game because that's such an interesting element of, I guess, like the engagement with art
yeah. But you
and
were saying,
getting to be a case study for it. It's fun.
you were saying there was a moment that really a spoiler moment that really made you connect with the main character, whose name I believe is Remy.
Yes,
Remi.
I believe that is the case. I do keep forgetting his name, which feels strange to say after saying that I like him.
Yeah. Uh, can I just say the poncho having stingray vibes with the strap, whatever down the middle, is very fun. I do love the design. Um, well, the cap. I don't know. I remember I mentioned it. I was like, "What's up with the cap?" And I'm like, the character design I'm not in love with, but the unsurprisingly the uniform, the shadowy organization uniform and the drone, the fact that the drone can perch on your shoulder and just be your little guy there, and then there is lore related to the time loops, um which are, I think we'll see one at some point in this footage. There's like time loops are orbs in a specific location. You have to kill all of the specific time loop guardians, which are just like specific enemies, and then you can go in and you can destroy them. And then once you've destroyed them, that like clears. It stops enemies from respawning in the level. So, like Dark Souls, if you leave a level and come back, all the enemies will respawn except the time loop guardians. And then if you break the time loop and you come back, the enemies won't respawn, which I do like. I think that's a cool mechanic. The cap, it's all about the Mets, baby. um, But anyway, I'm getting to the point because there is some lore from the organization that has, or not organization, the old like group that had dealt with these creatures before, because these come around every like 33 years or some shit. Sorry, there's so much
Okay.
lore. It is cool. There's so much.
It's so much. It's so
Um,
much. I don't fault you.
and they have this whole thing where it's like when it first started and they realized they could close it with these certain crystals, but they have to go to the middle point of the time loop, and when they do that and they use the crystal, all organic matter is like destroyed, and so they have like 100 and something like uh people who gave their lives to close these, and they're all like honored through this group. And then they realized they could, or not realize, but then they were like, we can train ours to do this instead. And so then there's all this lore about how they used to send in sacrificial owls to do it. And then now in modern day, we have this drone which is very bird like and perches on your shoulder, and you use your drone to go and close them. I was like, that's so cool. I love that so much. Why is he wearing a baseball cap? I don't know.
Sorry.
No, you're right.
I I need to change. I'm getting a bunch of lag.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to change my network to a hotspot real quick and see if that helps.
Sure.
So I'll be gone for a few seconds.
I'll hold down the fort. Um, but you know, the poncho is cool. And again, I talked about it before, you know, it's like there's you can find specific notes and stuff where it's like if you see soldiers wearing this poncho with these drones, like just let them do whatever they want. They don't question it. I'm like, that's so cool. It's well interwoven to the whole lore and story of the world and the conflicts going on. I thought it was very cool.
Am I back?
Yes.
Marvelous.
Um. Yeah. If you're back, do you want to talk about the what has endeared you to the player character?
Okay, so there was one particular element of this story and this character that I've seen be quite divisive, but fortunately for me, is also a topic that I have a fair amount of both personal and academic experience with, and was represented in a very interesting way, to me at least, through its main character. Now, I don't quite know how to broach this. Uh, what I'll initially say is, I loved this as a moment, like a realization in and justification in the story, because it made like having the personal context that I do for the matter at hand. I'm sort of dancing around it, but I want to be able to discuss this properly. Um,
I mean, we can go full
uh,
spoiler if anyone is not looking for
I
spoilers.
was I was going to. I was just going
Hmm.
sort of going to say like for me this was a very interesting moment because it justified feelings that I had that were something that was set up by uh just like how the character was characterized, how the mechanics were characterized, how some of the world building was characterized, and I was able to pick up on some stuff because it very closely related to personal experiences that I have. But what I will note is that I am going to be spoiling a moment that for me this moment of realization in this game's story was absolutely transformative to my experience. So I'll just note that for me this was a big moment, and I am spoiling it.
Hmm.
This is both for the sake of anyone on stream or for anyone that ends up watching the VOD, especially for anyone that has interest in mental health and psychology discussion. This is your moment to bail if you want to play the game for yourself and uh, be able to get this moment. And I don't necessarily know if people will agree with me on this, but there is a moment. Okay, we're doing it now.
Yep, we're
There
jumping
is a
in.
moment fairly early in the game, only a few hours in, but nevertheless, you've had a chance to like get used to how this character interacts with the world by this point, and elements of like quest structure and things like that. When oh, I should actually need to explain a story thing, which is that your character, was it Remy?
Remy?
Remy. Remy is originally born in Hadia,
Hmm.
or it's observed that he's originally born in Hadia, and so he has smuggled his way back into the country to investigate his basically his background. Um, and that's sort of part of the initial like way that the story is presented to you is that Remy has returned to the place of his birth that he was smuggled out of by his parents at a young age, while they stayed behind,
Hmm.
so that he can find out more about his history. And Dolph, you were mentioning the the not shadowy government secret organization that are the ones who are like the Order of Knights, as it were, who were fighting
The
the
limbic creatures.
the limbic creatures. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I was trying to remember the word limbic, and I was landing on a bunch of words that sounded similar.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, uh, and uh, the part of the way that you are introduced to this group is that Remy reunites with his father, who is closely tied to this group. And Remy's father dies, and dies in his arms. And Remy has very little to no reaction to this. And we cut back to the interview scene, like the interrogation scene, uh, the future scene, and the the interrogator, the what did River call them again?
The melting
The
man.
melting man. Um, basically states, and I will use the term that the game uses, but I will also observe some stuff about that because this is a. I'm getting into a touchy subject here, but again, it's a touchy subject that I have reason to speak on. Um, uh, describes Remy as having been diagnosed as a quote unquote high functioning sociopath, which we would now refer to as like in 2026 we would refer to as having a, I believe it's a cluster B personality disorder is how it's phrased.
Huh?
Um, yeah, and this was very interesting to me because I have absolutely had Yes, but what that means in the context of how this game is written is quite interesting. I do not like how BBC Sherlock handled the notion of a quote unquote high functioning sociopath, particularly because BBC Sherlock was set in the 2010s and not the mid 90s. Um,
You can get away with a lot setting your game in the 90s.
it would have been weird. It would have been weird if the bad faith investigator guy in the 90s was going, "Ah, I see that you have a cluster B disorder."
You
It would
got
have felt very.
woke bad guys.
Yeah, no, he's a big jerk. He's a big jerk and he calls you a sociopath.
Yeah, he does.
Um, but I've definitely had personal experience with people in my life having cluster B personality disorders. Because that's a lot of stuff that like gets lumped in with like sociopathy and psychopathy, but also stands for things like borderline, or BPD. And I do have at least one very close relative who suffers from BPD, and so it was interesting having that frame of reference and having done a lot of reading on the topic of cluster B disorders because of my personal closeness to that matter. Because I was noticing a lot of the traits that I would have just associated with that in how Remy was characterized. And moving forward from there, I found it very interesting how the game approached this characterization. Because, as I mentioned, the scene where you're introduced to this concept, is the idea that he doesn't have much of a reaction when his father dies,
Mm,
and he gets confronted about this, and he goes, "Well, yeah, it's my dad, but I didn't know my dad. That's just a word." Like, I'm not attached to the concept of my dad has died. This doesn't mean anything for me. I haven't grown up with a dad. And just that very logical understanding of emotion, not throwing away emotion completely,
mm,
but rather just processing that emotional experience in a way that people that aren't on the spectrum of cluster B would find completely abnormal, is a much more nuanced take on this condition than I tend to see in a lot of pop culture and media. You get a lot of like the. I mean, I'm so used to any time a character is described as having one of the in such a way that implies that they have a cluster B disorder, because I don't want to keep using the wrong words as much as they are more commonly used. I'm so used to that being like, oh, they're a cold-blooded killer that feels nothing about doing all of these heinous things, and in fact, they'll kill for fun. And it's like, no, that's not at all what this is. And there are plenty of genuinely wonderful people who have cluster B disorders who, yeah, they process information differently, just like autistic people process information differently, just like anyone with any form of neurodiversity processes information differently, and there is a meaningful degree to which cluster B is just a form of neurodiversity.
mm,
A more dramatic departure from neurotypical expectations, what some would observe, but nevertheless, it's functionally a similar effect. And that feels like how this game treated Remy.
yeah, I I can see where you're picking that up from. Um, I
I do
think
want to make another observation
go
here.
for it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, yes. No, no, no. You're welcome to finish your thought, and I can.
No, no, because I'll go on my whole tangent once you're done.
Okay, okay. Because there was one other element of this that I found so interesting, related to something that I mentioned earlier about how this game is structured.
Right.
Because this game does. I don't quite know how to phrase this, but essentially, I'll do my best. So there was the thing that we mentioned earlier, where this is the game where I read lore, where I read all the lore because it feels like there is a mechanical purpose to doing so. And in that same sense, with a lot of the like side quests that you can get, you aren't initially given a concrete reason to care about doing these side quests.
Mm.
But you are definitely given side quests before you are being given clear rewards and before you are made aware of the fact that uh, Remy has a cluster B disorder.
Yeah. Yep.
And what was so interesting to me about that is that I was going through this world, you know, interacting with these horrors with the detachment of someone that isn't there because I'm playing a video game.
Mm.
And that's something that I found so interesting with Remy's diagnosis with a cluster B disorder is it essentially, for me at least, on my personal player experience, bridged the gap between player behavior and character behavior because of the degree to which, as someone that is just playing this game, I do not have the same level of emotional attachment to this setting that one would typically assume a person in this setting would. There are absolute nightmarish horrors going on around me. Awful things are happening to people. And it's not that I'm not helping, but it's not having the same emotional impact on me as one would presume it were to if I were actually in this setting. And
Yeah.
for me, I was so intrigued by the notion of utilizing this form of representation to essentially using that representation to bridge that gap between the player and the character. And for me, what that also did so effectively is just on the level of it being representation, is it basically immerses the player in the experience of having this condition without at all telling you that it's doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my experience with it, at least.
I think the one of the ways this manifests is that the good deeds that you do by helping people in the levels, you don't get any rewards for doing them from the people you're helping. Like you might,
Yes.
give someone like some medicine that they need, or return a like personal item from somebody who died, and they'll be grateful and they'll show gratitude, but you don't get like a gameplay reward um from them. You have to go to this specific NPC in one of the levels who is part of this old order and has told you to do good deeds and get rewarded. So I thought it was very cool that like in this war-stricken country, these people who have like nothing, it was really cool that they were just like, "Oh my god, thank you so much," and then you'd go somewhere else and get a reward like unrelated, other than the fact that you did it. I was like, that's neat. It sort of helps, even if you're not sort of dialed into everything you were talking about. You can, it sort of distances itself from the typical sort of you know the gameplay system of like, I only do good things because I get rewarded. Like I only take on a quest in an RPG because they're going to give me money. Um, which was just nice. It's just nice to move away from that somewhat. Um,
Yes.
I guess though, like on the whole, I did not feel anywhere near as connected. A big part of that is it shows how people with cluster B can and will do things to help others, even if they don't get anything in return. Yeah, 100%. Um,
Hmm.
I guess like I'm not as well versed in that. Um, and
Oh
so
yeah.
when it gets brought up, I'm much more familiar with the trope being in narrative of that sort of condition. And then I think on top of that, I was really struggling at the start of the game. The game starts, right? And you go into this ruin and you're following these bodies. And then you encounter a limbic creature and you shoot it with the gun that you have and go, oh shit, it does no damage. and then one of these what are they, OMSIF I think is the acronym name for
Yeah.
the shadowy organization. They come out, they fight with it, and then they pass away, and you pick up their weapon, one of the like the limbic weapons that they have, which are the only way to harm these creatures. um and then yeah, you sort of, your gameplay starts, and you're pretty well equipped from the jump. You get your drone, and you get your weapon. And I appreciate that the gameplay, it's like, you start quite well equipped, so it lets you really like get into the more immersive gameplay sooner, rather than having to, like go and unlock the roll ability, now unlock the block ability. But it does make me feel like, oh, why is he just like naturally talented in this? Um, so yeah, I felt a
Yeah. I
disconnection
do
there
get
where I was
that.
like, oh, he's just like really good at this. There's no explanation of like, oh yeah, no, he trained with a sword. There's none of that. It's just he picks up a sword, and he can dodge and parry and roll. And so, it's not a huge issue, but I did feel disconnected. And so then when it got to that scene, I was like, this just feels tropey to me. Um, which I guess is a really good reason to have this conversation, because I would have just lived my whole life being like, it was just like another tropey example of it. Um,
Well, it's actually interesting because I was reading some of the reviews, and one person who had written an otherwise really good review actually had a similar concern to where you're at here, of it feeling like the trope done really weird. Because the observation that they made was, and I will need to directly quote them again. It's language that I wouldn't usually use, but I don't think we're in slur territory. Um, is they made the observation uh, that it felt weird to them that the story makes a note of the character being a quote high functioning sociopath, but so much of the character's actions and experiences in the game are driven largely by emotion. And that conflicts with the trope. It doesn't conflict with the condition.
yeah, yeah. I
And
guess.
that's something that I found very interesting was just like I totally get where you're coming from. And
Mm,
again, this is an experience that I personally had because I have a lot of context on this particular matter. But at the same time, yeah, I absolutely understand hearing that and going, "Oh, yeah, this tropey, vaguely problematic thing that people say about characters so that they can write them weird, quote unquote."
mm,
um, and someone going, "Hold on, but I've heard this thing about sociopaths," and that coloring that experience. Um, but there's this wonderful moment for me. There's this wonderful moment that, to me at least, signposted what, yeah, signposted what felt to me like the developers saying that they were on the level that I was with this topic. That they were doing the things that I was noticing intentionally and not, and I wasn't just reading too deep into it. Because there's this cutscene that happens right at the end of chapter one, I believe, or act one, where the interrogator is basically threatening Remy's friends, the characters who have become sort of your party over the course of the game, and Remy is like trying to do things to protect them, and uh, the interrogator character goes, I thought that sociopaths didn't care about anyone.
mm,
And Remy just snaps at him, just goes, "Fuck you!"
mm.
And it's this wonderful little bit of characterization uh, that just really highlighted that exact thing that I'm talking about, where it's this feels like people actually trying to write a character with a cluster B condition as opposed to the trope of the sociopath.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely felt, from like where I was playing through, it felt um it didn't feel like the classic trope, but it still felt tropey. So I thought it was like, they were trying to make it
Hmm.
more modern in the way that, it's trying to be more accurate and less stereotypical. Um and so yeah, it was just it just felt like, I guess I wasn't able to appreciate all the nuance that it did not feel tropey at all to me. That's cool. Cuz yeah, it's like I don't have the experience, so I wasn't able to pick up on the nuance of it.
Hmm.
Um, and so I guess like my guard was up. So when I heard them use that term, I was
Yes.
like, I was already in this sort of untrusting state because of the sort of way you just jump in with the weapons. Where I was like, I don't know if you're actually going to do this justice, and I don't know it well enough to be able to pick up on the nuances. So it just turned into that thing of like, the safe thing is to assume that this is not an example that I should follow. So it's really cool to hear that it's quite, at least from, I mean, yours and River's point of view, like quite well written. It's nice. It gives me I can flip that in my brain, which is nice. Um,
Yep.
I do still have issues with a lot of the dialogue in particular, um,
Mhm.
as well as the facial animations. I felt a lot of those were falling quite flat. And maybe it was more of like just the way the narrative is presented, jumping back to these sort of like high detail cutscenes felt like didn't fit. But there was also a couple of moments where I looked at Remy's face while he was speaking, and it's like his mouth was animated really well, but the top half was like just not animated at all. Which I would assume is just time constraints, scope constraints, budget constraints, but it just led to like
Oh yeah.
contributing that. I'm unsure if I myself am cluster B, but I find elements of Remy's character quite relatable. Interesting. Um, but yeah, it's not just Remy for me. It's a lot of the characters felt a lot of the main characters just sort of didn't feel like they had a lot going on. I didn't feel super invested in a lot of them. Oh, I'm dropping more frames for some reason. That's annoying. Um, Apologies. Hopefully that clears up. Um, I did really enjoy uh the way that like random NPCs were characterized though. Um, it feels obvious, but like being in a Sabinian occupied territory, talking to Palamus, who are talking about all the atrocities they're committing, sympathizing with them, and then going to the other side of the country to a Palamus occupied space and all the atrocities they're committing. It was like every time I was like, damn, like there's war is just this, like both sides will do horrendous shit, and it's the people caught in the middle, um, where it's just like depressing. Just war
Yeah.
crimes happening across the board, random civilians getting caught in the crossfire, and then they go that extra mile pushing the sort of media twist as well as the like shadow government influence. So it's like
Yes.
not only are there just the war crimes that happen apparently, but you also have like the way that the media forced these groups to turn on each other, and like you just
Yes,
see
you
it.
get exposed to a lot of propaganda in this game.
It's really amazing, and just the way like it's like you will talk to a random civilian, but they've been had a war crime committed against them, and so they're like, oh, this other group is just, then they're inhuman, they're monsters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really appreciate the fact that the game never stoops to the level of like, there's no moment where they're like, oh, both sides are bad. Like,
Yes.
it's just like you just sit there and go, yeah, man, they cut off your damn hand. Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
this is we're seeing what it's like to close a time loop. So this is one of those things where it's like I wish I knew more about this, or it was more of a focus, but essentially like a emotional incident usually associated with violence causes a time loop to occur, which causes the creatures to spawn, and so you fly your little guy in there to go and close it. um Really cool. Really, like, it reminds me of Control, like cleansing a the points. But yeah. Oh my gosh, that's narrative. Do you have any other narrative things? I think we should move on to gameplay. But I'll let you if you have any more narrative
I'll
thoughts.
touch on one on a couple more narrative things.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I've got two things especially that I want to note.
Yeah.
Um, Firstly is an element of the world building that further had such an interesting relationship to me with Remy being Cluster B. Just because I have one last thing that I can talk about with this that I remembered that is really cool and ties in a very interesting motifs way to the story
Mm-hmm.
and gameplay actually. Which is that a lot of how this world is, a lot of how like the supernatural elements of this setting is built is tied to this notion that exists within the religion of Hadia, with this notion that in particular there are four, I believe it was, emotions that are considered to be functionally sinful, or
Um.
it becomes more complicated than that.
Yeah. So the religion has 8 emotions, and
Yes.
I don't. From what I understand, I don't know if the four that show up are specifically bad. Um.
Yeah, it's not as simple as bad.
They have pairings like what are we? We're talking amazement, rage, grief, terror, ecstasy. What is that? Vigilance, loathing, admiration. So it's like these are not. I mean, maybe the most simple there is rage, but like
Mhm.
they're not. Yeah, they've done a really good job of picking things that leave a lot of complexity to them.
Yeah, but in particular, it's worthy of note that it is both the beliefs of characters in this setting and characters from their history, and there is some mechanical relevance to it, to the notion that the monstrous powers of the limbic entities are tied to the emotions of rage, ecstasy, terror, and grief.
Yeah.
And some of the enemies will have essentially like these projected manifestations of these emotions that you need to break before you are able to damage the enemy itself.
Yep.
And furthermore, the majority of your weapons will be aligned with one of these four emotions, and there will be skills that can be equipped with the associated weapons that not only are aligned with one of these emotions, but also try to evoke one of the relevant emotion in how it mechanically is
Specifically,
utilized.
yeah, specifically to upgrade your weapons, you have to align them with one of the emotions.
Yes, and I find the notion of the character who is able to utilize these powers and in some cases also be able to like resist these the impacts of these forces is a character who is diagnosed as processing intense emotions differently.
Yeah.
I found that just as a motif very interesting, and I think the connection as well between the religious ideals of like so much of a lot of traditionalist religious ideology associated with thought crime and things like that, having these emotions where it's like if you feel this you're summoning the demons. I feel like the way that they used that idea as part of this world building further grounded the religious beliefs in Hadia for me, and I just found that very compelling.
Yeah. I see it. I see the connection. I just feel like it wasn't they've got so much going on. It felt like they didn't dive as deep as I would have enjoyed, I guess. Um
Yeah.
excuse me. But We should jump off there into the mechanics, specifically the combat, because we're about to see
Yes.
quite a bit of combat. Um, so yeah, like you said, so we have our regular enemies, which are the white limbic creatures, and they have a few different variants, maybe five. And then some of them will be tied to a specific emotion, and they will summon, like you said, this sort of projection which you have to defeat before you can hurt the enemies. Um, Unfortunately, I guess my biggest thing, which you might catch from that summary, is there's not a huge amount of variety. There are, like I said, I think five base limbic entities, four emotions, with each emotion having three stages. Your enemies are split into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, which basically determines generally how much health and how much damage they do, and then which level summon they will bring forth. And the level summon determines what type it is. And by the end of the game, I just found that I had faced the exact same enemies so often that I was just very familiar with all the attack patterns, and not in a good way. Um, and I found, I guess, like when you have a Souls like in this realm, the strength is the one-on-one combat. And I think that's why, Dark Souls bosses are so revered, right? And you end up leaning into genres that are almost boss rushes, right? Like I think Night Rain is that's kind of the thing that everyone likes about it, right? It's the fact that it's like Elden Ring but just the boss rush. Because I think that one-on-one combat is so where it's at. We don't see a lot of that in this game. Um, and once you sort of understand each entity's patterns, the only sort of variance they throw up is what tier it is and then how many you have to fight. Um, and I just don't enjoy fighting big groups of enemies in these sorts of games. Um, that's the broad. I want to jump into some more specifics, but do you have any thoughts about that as a broad sort of summary of the combat?
I do. Because I've had an interesting experience with this where, again, I can't disagree with you at all, and I totally understand that. Yes, just on a very objective level, this is a game that has quite a lot of content and playtime while not having a lot of variety in the enemies that you fight in that time. But I will also acknowledge that for me, the ways that they approached having the limbic projections out of the limbic creatures, and the fact that any projection can come out of any creature, and at times that one projection can like be tied to multiple creatures at the same time, and
Hmm.
so you've got an entire like a group of two or three enemies, and you need to fight this particularly tough, scary thing in the middle of that group before you are able to actually deal damage to any of them. I can absolutely see why that wouldn't work for someone, but I think for me, I, as much as I would usually go into something like this going like, yes, I want fun, exciting hack and slash action RPG. For me, I feel like so much of my enjoyment is on this level of it being a melee survival horror game in a certain sense.
Right.
And the way that the group fights and the enemies projecting out the different uh, limbic manifestations, the for me that has ended up developing a lot of tension in a lot of the fights. And so while it doesn't have that same amount of variety that a lot of games would have, it nevertheless gets my blood rushing.
Sure. I guess if I'm analyzing it from that perspective, though, I feel like survival horror, it's best when the environment can play a factor. And I found a lot of those moments are just in small or even medium-sized arenas. So like, I don't know, I just found whenever there was a group of enemies, if there was a ranged enemy, it was a pain in the ass because it's hard to deal with ranged enemies in this game, especially if there's like
Hmm.
other melee ones. Or if it's a group of melee ones, it's like you just kind of need to kite them so that they attack you one at a time. I did not feel like, and it's like I guess that is a technique, but it's not super enjoyable to me. Um,
I
and then
completely understand that.
like these, like we see here, I'm fighting this tier 3 sort of projection, and it's like the best solution is to use the distract function with the drone on the one that summoned it, so that you can actually focus on it. Because it's just like, I don't know, it can go downhill so quickly, and maybe one of the other issues I have. This is getting more. Well, we're moving on from the broad thing, but there's so many options that I just don't use. um,
Mm.
like you can see in the bottom right, the drone has 4 different functions you can equip to it, and there was maybe like 10 like possible things you could equip to it. And then in the bottom left corner, you have your weapons, and those also, well, those have 3 different uh skills you can equip to your weapon with dozens of options. And then you also have an active rune and a passive rune. So the left trigger on the right, that's your active rune, and your passive rune is just, well, passive. It's always active. And so it's like there was just so much stuff. And then that's not even to talk about the consumables, right? The general combat, you can see at the top, you've got your health and your stamina. Underneath that, you have your limbic energy, which you get from uh, attacking enemies, and I think maybe being hit. That might be a passive thing that I had. Um, you expend limbic energy to use your weapon skills or to use your charged attacks. Because there is your light attacks and your charged attacks. You have 2 weapon slots. I use these twin axes for the whole game. I never switched. um, and
That might have
then
also been something that's been helping me feel a greater degree of variety. I have absolutely been bouncing between weapon types.
yeah, I mean, so you've also got the consumables. So one of the consumables gives your weapon limbic energy. One of them heals you instantly. One of them gives you health regen. One of them heals your stamina. One of them reduces the cooldown on your drone abilities. Um, and then yeah, you have multiple weapons. Weapons have your block function, which if you time it right, when the enemies do a red attack, you can parry them, which will stagger them. If you the different enemies have different number of stagger bars. If you use all of them, then you can do like a finisher move. My point to all of that is there's so much going on. None of it felt tuned enough for me. It felt like everything was there, but nothing felt really good to use. Like switching, they have like the Dark Souls style um active item thing where like you can press left and right on the D-pad to switch through your consumable items, and then you press down to use them. That felt too sluggish, and also like there was just so much of that wanted to happen in the heat of battle. Where I think Dark Souls had it nailed, where you can put things that you'd use in the heat of battle there, but a lot of the stuff you can do is stuff you can apply to your weapon before a fight. Otherwise, you keep it on your healing. Um, and then yeah, so switching between those I found to be too clunky. Um, weapons move sets felt fine. The charge attacks I didn't love, especially being tied to a resource. And then I got an upgrade where I can heal with my limbic energy. So I was like, well, why would I bother using that when I can just focus on parry, attack, and use my limbic energy as a healing source? Um, but even then, like I have issues with the moment to moment combat where uh there are certain attacks that'll just eat your inputs. You can move, but like you can't block or attack. And I never figured out how that worked. It was like I was being staggered, but I had full stamina. Um, so yeah, I think we're sort of leaning into my sort of closing thoughts on this, but I guess those are closing thoughts as because they're summary. But um, essentially, what I'm getting at is this game has so much going on. I think it would have really benefited from honing in on a couple aspects and leaving some of the other stuff out.
Hmm. Hmm.
Sorry,
I'm in an
that's like a
interesting boat
lot to
here
just
where,
drop on
like,
you.
no, it's good. Um, it's I'm in an interesting boat here where the game designer part of my brain thinks you're right, and the part of my brain that has just been unabashedly enjoying this game
Yeah,
is going, "Oh, I'm having a good time. It's fine. Nothing needs to change. It's fine."
yeah. I think
Which
I
is
could
a
have
weird spot to be.
I could have forced myself to go and try out new builds and do different things, and it would have brought more variety in, which maybe would have I think one of the reasons why I felt like I was sort of being held captive by this game was the fact that I'd gotten used to all of the enemy attack patterns. I'd gotten very used to my weapons and abilities, and it just sort of became stale in that way. But it was effective, so I didn't feel the need to switch. Um, but what I was doing was just not very deep, right? Like when I saw
Yeah.
the tier 1 enemies and they only have one stagger bar, so you need to get one parry on them and then you can do an attack. I was like, oh, this is going to be really neat. This is going to be like a take on Sekiro, right? And then it's like, oh, tier 3 enemies don't you need to do that 3 times, but it's like some enemies will rarely do an attack that you can parry, some enemies will do a bunch that you can't. um so it's like it just didn't feel very consistent to lean into that. But then also I got a passive relic where for a few seconds after I parry, I do like 300% damage.
Oh.
So, I'm like, well, if you're giving me this chance, like I'll lean into that. But that was as deep as that went, Like there was no more reason to parry other than the one relic I have and like the default benefits from parrying an attack.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you mean. Um, and yeah, I think this is an interesting thing for me. Because this is actually an area where I butt heads with um a lot of game design takes quite often, and it is just very much about how I psychologically approach a an experience with a game versus how I am under the impression most people do. Because for me, I have absolutely played games where I have been doing the same thing over and over again and it works, so why would I change? And then I go, hold on, I'm not actually having that much fun doing this. And I'll just start doing something that's less optimal, just simply because it just winds up being more fun for me. Like the classic example is Devil May Cry 2. And I say that's the classic example because that is a much maligned game. And people make the observation about it. You can just use it's a hack and slash game, but if you just use the guns, you can just win. It will be
Yeah.
slow and unpleasant, but you can just win. And if you take risks, the you are more likely to die. And while the game might be more fun, it's no more effective. In fact, it's technically less effective. It's less
Yeah.
optimal.
Yeah.
I love Devil May Cry 2. um and it's because I don't like playing it the way that people go, yeah, if you play it like this, you win and you have a bad time. And I'm like, have you considered losing but having a good time?
Yeah.
I think that's sort of my thing. Is like for me, yes, you can absolutely create an optimal build in this game and uh, churn through stuff. And honestly, I do think that on like an optimal play level, the axes are the way to go. They are much faster than the other weapons, but
Yeah.
also still have a decent stun on them. Different weapons will have more stagger potential on different hits in their combo, and I think the axes have their most stagger on their third hit, whereas the sword I think has like increasing. But basically, like the axes will stagger a standard enemy on their third hit. The standard one-handed sword will stagger an enemy on its second hit, but the axe's third hit comes out sooner than the sword's second hit
Mm.
does.
And it's a total
So,
5 combo on the axes as well.
hmm?
There's 5 moves to the
Yeah,
combos on the
exactly. And
axes.
so, yeah. And so, yeah, as far as like optimizing your stagger on enemies and therefore keeping yourself as safe as possible, axes are probably the way to go. And I've been playing with the axes, but I've also been playing with the other ones and trying to find the strengths to them. And they might not be optimal. And to be clear as well, I would consider that a balancing issue. I think that there is a degree to which the axes are balanced in the way that is the most beneficial to the player.
Right. Yeah. I like I agree
And
in the sense of like a balancing issue, but I'm also just like you would have had more time to resolve that and you could have made that system more interesting, that idea of like the combos and the stagger, if you'd cut out the consumables or the abilities or both.
mm,
There's just
mm,
a lot happening, you know?
I have also been completely forgetting to use the consumables, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
might also be a thing.
And I'm
Um,
like, when you have like I really like the mechanic of when you hit the enemy, you build up that like white bar to fill in the gap from your max on your health and your stamina. And you have to press like
mhm,
the right bumper to use that, but you have to press it at a specific time. Using it too early will void it. And what I really liked is even using it too late will void it because there is a leeway after the time where you can use it where if you hit again, it'll add to it. So it's like, do you in the middle of your combo try and get back some of your health and stamina, um, but risk like losing what you have built up? Or do you wait until you've done your full combo and then so I'm like, I don't know, it's just like that's a really cool mechanic. The move sets on the weapons is really cool. The idea of the abilities on the weapons is really cool. The idea of the consumables is really cool. It's just I just wish they had focused on a couple and just really lent into it. Sorry that I've repeated that like 3 times now, but yeah.
no, I get it. I will say, I can confirm the weapon abilities are really fun. I have been actively using them, and they are so interesting because they do play on the ideas of the different emotions. I
Mm,
haven't found a terror weapon that I've been drawn to yet. I was very actively using a rage one-handed sword and an ecstasy two-handed greatsword for a while. I'm now using a grief one-handed sword and an ecstasy pair of axes.
yeah.
Um, and each of the different emotions of that your weapons can be aligned with have different abilities that you can equip to them. There are also neutral
Mm,
ones that can be equipped to any weapon, like the heal, for instance.
yeah.
Um, but there are different abilities for each of them. And I like how they kind of try to play on the ideas of what that emotion represents. For instance, all of the ones for grief that I have encountered have, in some capacity, essentially laid down uh, an area of effect that will do persistent damage
Yeah. Yep.
or persistent stagger. It's that wallowing. It's that
Yeah.
drowning in sorrow, drowning in grief sort of idea. With rage, it's abilities that add to your offensive toolkit. One that I was very fond of was there was one that is just uh, like a grapple hook wire that comes out the end of your weapon, and you just yank the enemy
Mm,
over to you.
yeah.
And And in the scenarios where I was using that, you mentioned how annoying the ranged enemies can be, but there are scenarios where you can actually yoink them off of heightened terrain and be able to completely turn the tide of those battles.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like it
Um,
is cool, but like when I was first introduced
mhm,
to it, I was still getting the hang of the general combat. And like I said, there's parrying, there's the right bumper, like healing mechanic, there's stamina, like so, and there were so many options for glyphs, which is what we're talking about, these weapon abilities, where I was like,
mm,
I had no choice, but I was like, I've got to put these to the side because there's so much going on, and I don't even understand the base mechanics yet. And so then by the time I was like comfortable, I was like, well, I'm set with the base mechanics, you know.
mhm. Yeah,
Um,
whereas actually, it's probably worthy of note as well that just anytime I'm given more combat mechanics in a game, I am happy.
yeah,
I'm
I
given
don't.
more moves in a toolkit, I'm happy.
I just wish, I guess, like games like Silk Song, I think handle it really well, right? It's like the base combat mechanics are so simple, and then over time you'll get like major abilities, which they're just so good. They do Metroidvania so well. So like your major abilities will influence not only your traversal but your combat as well, right? And so that starts to shake things up. You start to learn new potentials, and then major abilities will change your sort of core mechanics, and then you get the what were they in Silksong? There were charms in Hollow Knight, I think. But you get what is essentially the glyphs in this game, but they were more about altering your core mechanics rather than adding on additional moves. Um, so I think an approach like that might have been really cool, where it's like, oh, maybe, you know, rage ones focus on increasing attack speed or decreasing attack speed and increasing damage. And like you said, grief could impart some sort of like slowing effect, still lean into those really cool ideas of like, what do these emotions mean in a combat sense, but avoiding, overcomplicating the base moves is maybe how I would approach it. But it is interesting to me that it's for you. It's like, oh no, that wasn't a bother at all. It's just more things in my toolkit.
Oh yeah, I mean some of the some of the toolkit things have been really fun. I mean there was I also do like some of the abilities with the drone.
Mm,
I think it is just an interesting thing where on the one hand it it could be observed, yes, it is an issue that you only stuck with these specific abilities and didn't really use the other ones. On the other hand, we both used completely different abilities. And by having all of these different abilities, two different players were able to have these notedly different experiences where they express what they each are looking for in this game.
yeah,
And in your case, that was very much setting up these tactical sort of like, yeah, the purpose for my drone is to use the distraction feature primarily and these opportunities to keep enemies off my back so that I can focus on who I want to focus on. Whereas I've sort of gone, there's a move where you can charge through a load of enemies. You swoop with the drone, sword forward, and barrage your way through. And
mm,
that's been my main drone ability I've been using because it's a lot of fun. Um,
mm,
there's actually one that I really like. That's an ecstasy glyph. That actually goes really well with some parrying. Because yeah, you observe this game sort of does promote decently offensive playstyle, and so you don't get an opportunity to get the full stagger from the parries on a lot of enemies. But one of the ecstasy abilities, one of the ecstasy glyphs, sends out a shockwave from the front of your weapon
right.
that that knocks out like a chunk and a half of the posture gauge,
Oh,
and so you can combo that with a parry against against enemies and use that as a setup to be able to get the fancy kill move attacks way more frequently.
interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like building your own fun out of the Lego pieces, and I'm like, I think personally, I just would always rather have a complete set handed to me that I get to explore and find all the the details and sort of get into the ins and outs of it. Um, but I guess that's
Mm.
just a difference in player at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, because I mean, I've been on about it for years. I am such a person that loves being given
Yeah,
a a bag of loose Legos of game mechanics. If I'm
yeah,
getting to build my own playstyle and find ways to express myself in how I am approaching, especially like combat and traversal mechanics, I'm a happy camper. And so here, this felt like a
mm,
like in many regards it has that Dark Souls comparison, but then you're given these cool powers that create this much more complex toolkit that I can utilize and mix and match as I go and go, hey, actually, I do feel like focusing on these distractions and stuff, and I do feel like focusing on using my meter for the healing for this particular fight. But also, sometimes there's a massive horde of the level 1 enemies, and I want to use a grief ability, create a massive area of effect slowdown zone, and watch them all stagger through it and slump over.
yeah, yeah. I don't
And
know.
that's
I
been a lot of
guess
fun for me.
that I love that. I think I'm like, if you give me a parry option, I in my head I'm like, okay, this game is about me mastering timing, and like I want that sort of like domination factor over the enemy. The idea of like I will become untouchable. And so I tried out the ram ability with the drone because it's one of the first ones you get, and I was like, this takes too much control away from me, and it feels too clunky. And that goes back to I was saying there's I don't know who it was. There's some enemy that can like stagger you, and then like it just eats your inputs. And so I'm like, when I am set up by a game to think that I'm going to get like sort of mastery over it, those sort of moves, whether it's my own moves or an enemy's effect on me, that take away my control so drastically, I'm like, this doesn't fit what my expectation is.
Yeah, whereas for me, yeah, there are enemies that can limit your options at times. Like there's one enemy that can send out a shockwave thing that temporarily disables your drone abilities.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, oh, cool. So I can't rely on those mechanics for this fight, and I need to think of new creative things that I can do.
Mm,
And I think that that's also a thing. Is like, yes, this is absolutely a game that has those core systems that you can focus on those simple tools for, but also there's so much room for all of this other expression with it. And for me, the cherry on top is that there are then scenarios that limit your options. Like with the thing of, I think honestly, this is really oh, what's the word that I'm after? There's a word that I'm after for this. Whatever, I'll communicate the idea. It's it all can be expressed for on the same sort of design philosophy as the mechanic where your max stamina goes down with your health. Because for me, that was such an interesting thing in a game like this that goes, here is your big toolkit. Here is all of this stuff that you are able to use. Here are all the fancy glyph special attacks. Here are your fancy drone special attacks. Here are your core moveset things. You can parry, you can block, you can dodge. You have a special drone ability that improves that like it's a power up mode for your dodge that lets you dash around the stage really quickly. And here is this core system that will force you to play differently sometimes. And I think I that's just what really stood out to me as a positive thing this was this mechanical thing of giving you a complex toolkit with all of this variety and then going and you can't rely on any one piece of it completely. And I think that's why mechanically this game really works for me because it may at sometimes be a hodgepodge of pieces, but it's more than the sum of its parts.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's it. I guess it's just not uh where I align. And this reminds me actually of the conversation we had about Yakuza, right? Where I was like, oh, I'm enjoying Kiwami 2, where it's like you have one combat style and not multiple, and you're like, oh, that is not what a lot of the fans are aligning with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I enjoy the specific reference to that one enemy who can disable your drone, because the amount of times where I'd sent my drone to distract that guy, and then he spends all his time disabling it, I was like, hey, this is a win-win. Like, you're occupied with my drone. That's all I cared about. Let me go kill this grief entity real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I guess otherwise in terms of mechanics, I found the lack of a map slash sort of assistance with the immersive aspects of it to at the end of the day just become frustrating, especially in the quest to 100% it. The last achievement I needed was close every time loop. Easy enough. You have a little gadget that helps find all the guardians,
Yeah.
and you have a menu that keeps track of their rough location, but also kill every enemy. The only way to know if you've
Oh.
killed every enemy in an area is to go to the APC and check it on the map. So there was like a couple areas where I ran through looking everywhere, killed an enemy, was like, sick, all right, let me go make sure, go to the APC. Nope, still missing one. It's like, oh, okay. Okay. The Akasa Marshes, one of the like very early areas in the game, they
Yeah.
love to hide the basic enemies in these pools of water, so you can't see them, and they don't pop up until you get close. So the amount of running around I had to do, just trudging through puddles of water to hopefully trigger the right group of enemies, um, it was really painful. And I mean, that is optional content, but that was the tip of the spear, right? Like there was plenty of frustrating moments where I'm like, I don't know if this is fun. Like it might just be a me issue, but it's hard for me to imagine other players being like, "Oh, I love not like knowing I have the note that gives me the answer to this key code, but not remembering which note it is." And I guess like it looked like there were options there where you can like archive stuff, but I never used them because I was never sure what was I was done with. Um, and then I think what also didn't help is I was watching Gemma play Prey for the first time, uh, the Arcane 2016 Prey, and
Yeah.
being a full fledged ImSim, seeing it just be like, you pick up a note that has someone's computer password on it, and then you go to the computer and it pre fills the password because it's like, no, you found the note. I was like, oh, that looks so nice. um, and I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, at least they were upfront about that. Like were we talking about this last time? I can't remember if it was on our stream or on Chris's stream, where we're talking about like player expectations, and essentially like I think 80% of making a good game is making sure that your core gameplay matches the player expectations. Whether that is making sure the core gameplay is actually fitting and fun and fulfills what the player wants, or if it's making sure the player understands what the core gameplay actually is, right? um so maybe that's where I had issues with the combat, where going into it, judging from the look of it, I thought it was going to be more souls like with the combat, um and there was a miscommunication versus you know I wasn't super into having to do all the note taking that it required and all the additional reading, but at least I was aware of it from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, how have you found that aspect of it? I know you were saying earlier that like you've enjoyed being forced to read stuff, but have you had any moments where you're banging your head against the wall because you picked up the book that has the code, but you just don't remember which one it is?
No, no. I've it's been smooth sailing for me. I've been either being able to just remember a lot of stuff and I've also had
Mm.
yeah, I was about to say River has been backseating for me, taking notes, and two memories plus a notebook has been
And
the appropriate toolkit.
not putting 30 odd hours down in a fortnight probably helps too.
Oh yeah, and like I originally I originally started it back when it came out in what, like September. I feel like it came out in September. Um, it
Yeah,
was
that
either
sounds
September
right.
or August.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a little side quest that you're introduced to right at the beginning that I have not completed yet because I haven't unlocked the area where you are meant to go to that to do a thing for that yet. Um, and I still just like can recount the details of what is needed for me for that quest.
Yeah.
We did write it down, but I haven't had to check the note because I remember that there is a woman behind a door in a cave in the first area,
Mm.
and in a specific city that she mentioned, there is a specific office where she mentioned that I believe it was a law office, where there is meant to be a person that is there that has a key to the place that she is presently trapped because she was locked in there. And he was meant to come back for her and hasn't, and so I need to find the key there and then bring it back to this specific cave in this specific spot in the first area. And for some reason, I've retained that knowledge.
I didn't even know that she tells you where to go. I feel like when I talked to her, she would just say, "Help, help me." And I went, "Okay." And then I just had to look at the door and be like, "I need whatever the symbol that is." Um that's yeah. I think that was also one of my other issues is like I knew I should be taking notes, but when I started off, I didn't know what notes I should be taking. So I started taking a lot of notes about the world and the history, only to find out partway through that I'm like, oh, I have an iPad that is writing all these down. You have like a investigations tab in your menu, and it records all those key details. So I was like, oh, okay, I don't need that. And so it took me a good while to be like, oh, I should be like, here's a side puzzle. I should write down where it is because I'm gonna forget. And then what it looks like I need. It took me too long to realize that. You record quest info from NPCs, yeah, and puzzle solutions,
Yeah.
yeah. I will also
Yeah, that's
there's
exactly the thing. With the documents, you keep those with you. With everything else, you make them documents.
yeah. I didn't love there's the mysteries tabs, and what bothered me is like you could find a locked door or a limbic chest, but it wouldn't unlock the mystery until you found the key. But then when you found like, so there'd be times where it's like, oh, I found a limbic chest at the forge, and nothing would get recorded, and so I would go and find keys, and then I'd be like, oh, I forgot to write down what key I needed. Let me go see if this one fits, and then it'd be like, oh, it was the wrong one, and then I found out like towards the end of the game, I was like, oh, you can find the key. Like I was in one area, found a key, and it goes new mystery, limbic chest in this location, and I'm like, how do you know where that key goes? like if I haven't found that previously. Um
Mm. You know what else
so
I think might be a factor that influenced our experiences here?
mm, mm,
I've been playing a lot of very like recent modern games in the last year or so. I have become so the novelty of games not holding my hand at all is a very welcome one, and
right.
like being designed to not hold my hand. Um, and I partially say that just because I know that a lot of the games that you have been playing are you play a lot of older ones and also a lot of like games like Peak, where a lot of it is figuring shit out on your own
Yep.
or with your friends, I guess. And I wonder whether there's also a degree to which our experiences with this game have been person drowning versus person dying of thirst.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Um yeah, I don't know, because I guess like from my perspective, a lot of the puzzles and stuff felt not arbitrary, but like there wasn't a it wasn't asking you to do like, it's not like a logic puzzle, right? The puzzles are just puzzles. Do you have the key? Do you have the puzzle piece? Do you have the required item? And like, there's nothing wrong with that. But if I am not getting assistance from the game, I'm having far more fun if it's a logic puzzle, like you said with Peak, where it's like they introduced the cooking update. Um, Sorry, I don't know if that came through in chat or if AutoMod caught it. No, it did come through in chat. Okay, get exploited. Um, Apologies. Like in Peak, they introduced updated cooking mechanics because previously, when Peak launched, you cooked anything you could consume, even if it didn't make sense, like a bandage, and it would give you bonus stamina because that was just how the cooking worked. But when they updated it, they added like negative effects to certain things. So we deliberately didn't read the patch notes. So we found out things like, we had those moments of like, probably shouldn't cook, probably shouldn't cook like a lantern because it's not just going to get incinerated, it's going to explode. Um, or, we had a moment where um, I think it was Jeffrey had cooked a energy drink because it was a consumable. You cook it, you get bonus stamina. And so we're in the last level, and Jeffrey's like, I'm going to make this climb. I'm going to drink my energy drink. But because he had cooked it with the update, cooked energy drinks now explode. They don't do damage, but they do knockback. And me and Lauren went flying, and we were like, what happened? And we lost it. And then, when the emotions settled, Jeffrey goes, I think it's because I cooked the energy drink. And it's like, those moments are so good to me. I love them so much. And so, yeah, I think you're right. It's like, when it's in Hell Is Us, when the puzzles are like, what's the specific code? Where's this, like, what you need this specific item? I just, yeah, I rather have the hand holding there. It reminds me of Yakuza, right? Where it's like, when you speak to an NPC, you'll get their sub story start, and you have a specific entry for it, and it keeps you updated, and it's there, and tells you what you need to do. So I don't know. It's hard for me to look at it and be like, do people enjoy this? Because like, what's the old games that people equate this to, or not this, but that note taking format? It's like Mist. Is that it?
I am missed a lot of older RPGs. Because it also kind of takes me back to like early dungeon crawler
Yeah.
JRPGs and stuff, like classic Fantasy Star,
Does
which
this
until it's hmm?
does this fit in that realm? Like, is the sort of puzzles and note taking? Does it fit in the same genre? Does it feel the same?
Not necessarily as that one, but definitely I would comfortably draw that comparison with or much more comfortably draw that comparison with a game like Myst. I would uh uh in the chat I have a whole notebook solely for Cultist Simulator, and I love it personally. Yeah, and yeah, there's plenty of older like adventure games, RPGs, things like that will absolutely ask you to do things like that. The classic Gothic games are actually really good for this as well. Where there's lots of quests that are a guy will tell you you need to find Steve. He's in the mines to the west. And admittedly, that's a game with a map. But, like, you don't have a quest marker. You have a quest in your quest log that says, go to the mines to the west and meet Steve. And you're like, oh, there's something on the map that I think looks like it could be mines. Or,
Mm.
like, you ask someone else and they'll mark your map with mines. But, like, you gotta ask someone else entirely. And even then, you don't have a great idea of what the mines actually mean. You'll go there and you'll be asking around, going, "Hey, do you know Steve?" And you don't have a quest marker. You just gotta find Steve. He's in the mines. Get over there.
Yeah, yeah,
um, and I think that that's kind of the appeal that this game wanted to. It wanted to scratch the itch, I think, for people who are really sick of handholdy quest markers and things.
yeah.
And I think that there's definitely a degree to which uh I think there is a degree to which I wonder how much they necessarily scratch that itch, or or whether they fail to, or whether they kind of end up doing something a bit different in the process.
Yeah,
Is
I
because I
guess
would also observe that. Oh
I
yeah.
was just gonna say, I guess if like if you're responding to the criticism that like the late stage wow, I really just slipped into that late stage Assassin's Creed games, not capitalism, not this time, kind of. The late stage
Although
Assassin's Creed games are
Ubisoft
in.
have been union busting lately, so
Yeah. But like the complaints around those where it's like, I don't want a map with a billion markers on it. Um, like I think people like having a world where there's a billion things to do, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, I feel like is a good example of that. But I guess if this is a response to that criticism where it's like, oh, I'm sick of a map that has like, here's 400 side quests I can do. I can resonate with that, but this feels like too much of a swing in the opposite direction. Um, like just looking at me running around these mines, I'm like, yeah, this blows. Like knowing I have a key and not remembering how to get to the door, or like when I was first exploring this area and like there's one mine shaft. You like climb this. You climb to the top of this hill. You go down the ladder. It is 10 meters of track, collapsed thing, and two locked doors. And I was like, "What is the point? This is awful." Like, it almost discouraged me from exploring. But then the game is so clearly intent on you exploring. They leave little, collectibles everywhere, and I think that's kind of the issue with the consumables, right? Is it's like I think they had a moment where they're like, we need more things that you can pick up in the environment. And so they're like, health kit, med kit, large meal, a drone bypass, limbic battery, a rage suppressor. Like, I've gone back into my tangent.
I get
uh,
it. I get it.
I can
And
I can
on the
resonate with wanting less hand holding, but yeah, this felt like just a way to check my menus to be like, hey, have I killed every enemy here? Or like an item to be like, oh, in the surrounding 100 meters like radius, like highlight the enemies. You know, anything.
Yeah, I think especially if you're I will say I have loved exploring in this game. I get where you're coming from in general, but I've just had a very different experience with it. However, the thing that you said about the achievement for killing all of the enemies, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because yeah, you are right. This game is not designed to do that.
Yeah,
I mean, for a start, so many of the enemies are specifically designed to be in obtuse places so that while you're trying to explore, something gets you.
yes, yeah, big time. I can't agree more. And also, actually, rounding back to the notebook thing, I like the idea of having a notebook, but I guess if I'm gonna have a notebook for a game, I want to use it like my notebooks for D&D, right? Like I want to record the actions I take and the things that are happening around me, and things that sound like they could be, um, could be useful information to know later. And I think I don't know. I guess I guess I had a subconscious sort of expectation of this being more of an sim. And so when I didn't
Mm,
meet that, I was like, oh, this isn't what I had prepared for.
I see. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because it very much feels like it's trying to straddle this line where there's elements of contemporary action RPG Souls like gameplay. There's elements of survival horror. There's elements of like other contemporary action RPG like hack and slash style mechanics in there. There's elements of immersive sim, and it strikes a very specific balance between those things, is how I'll put it. And if you happen to like the combination of design elements of Dark Souls, Gothic, and PS1 era Resident Evil, then it's very easy to jive with this game. and that's where
Yeah.
I've been at.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I will actually say the puzzles are very Resident Evil.
mm, I was in Darcy's stream last week, and he asked me what my thoughts were on it, and I think I'm in a spot to better solidify that. What I said at the time, I was like, it's kind of, it feels like a 7 out of 10, but a sequel could hit a 9 out of 10, and I think I'm still comfortable with that. I got frustrated with this game. I felt like it was, um, I was really feeling the flaws, but I'm very aware that I was pushing myself, and that's not on the game. Like if I'd given myself more time, I wouldn't have had the same things. So that's why I think it sits at that 7 out of 10. Like if I rate it on my emotional response, it probably gets a 5 out of 10. But the qualities of it, assessing it fairly, I'm like, yeah, it sits there because I think it's got so much going on. There's some really cool things, like the way that I've been getting really sick of Souls likes where you have to rest at the bonfire. You rest at the bonfire to level up and set your checkpoint, and then it resets the enemies. I'm like, I'm kind of over that. Dark Souls has done that. So
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the fact that enemies wouldn't respawn unless you left the area and came back. Um,
and even then you can break the time loops and disable their respawns entirely.
yeah, which that was one of the other things. I was like, that's a really cool concept. The worst parts were when I had fully explored an area, was unable to break the time loop, and so then had to come back to kill, for the achievement to kill the enemies. But I think in a sequel they could lean into that more, right? And so it's like, unless there's significant story reasons that you need to come back, let you clear the area on if you explore everything fully the first time. Like that was such a nice, interesting twist on the gameplay. I was sad that it turned into a hassle when I couldn't break the time loop. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like the concept is really cool. The and like I said, like the modern day stuff. Well, I mean, I did enjoy the sort of 1,000 year lore, but it just was too much to consume along with everything else. So I'm like, all the story, the world building is really good. I think if you had a more sort of honed in focus on it in a sequel, I guess that's where I'm at. I'm like, it's such a the scope is so large, the canvas they've painted is so large. A sequel could really like carve out any square of that, focus on it, and add depth to it, and it'd be really compelling. Maybe like if they picked, if they lent further into the Resident Evil style puzzles and stuff, I wouldn't enjoy it. I would enjoy it less probably, but at least from my perspective, it'd be a more complete game. This feels like
More
three
cohesive.
games. Yeah, this feels like three games stitched together well. The fact that it all works interchangeably, like is impressive. It just feels like too much. So yeah, those are my broad general thoughts. 7 out of 10. If they make a sequel that leans into the aspects I like, I'll definitely play it. If they don't, I know they will. They have the ability to make a really good game focused on that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think a sequel definitely needs to focus in on a few of the aspects.
Yeah, I respect that. I think for me, because I just found more from this game that was satisfying for what I wanted from it. I think, and as well, I think there were certain elements of its design that just suited the headspace I went into it with better. Um, I, I'm not too far off agreeing with you in certain key regards here, but sort of a bit in the opposite direction, where you're saying it's a 7 out of 10 that I kind of had a 5 out of 10 experience with, and I would describe this game personally as a 7 or 8 out of 10 as well. I would be willing to go as high as 8, but 7 seems very reasonable to me. That has really stood out as memorable to me.
Yeah, fair enough.
There's a lot of things about this game especially its art direction and sound
Oh,
design. I
yeah, really
oh
good. The sound design, I'm sad I need to have the volume down so that I can focus on speaking. But
yeah,
killing time loop guardians sounds so good. Killing the last time loop guardian and the sound of like the protection on it breaking, really good. It's funny, like feeling not feeling any actual gameplay threat from the enemies, but still feeling unsettled by them just really
yes.
speaks to how well designed they are from like an artistic point. Um,
Yes, the sound design, the visual design, and then also one thing that it's a little thing, but oh god, I love it. There are so many things in the level geometry that kind of look like the enemies.
yeah. Oh yeah, the number of like weird sculptures that you'll find in some of these ruins where it's like, you clearly made this after one of the enemies. What are you doing? Don't
Hmm.
put it at the end of the hallway like it's a fucking jump scare. Like I've got personal beef with whoever like what character like decided to put it there. How did it run on launch,
And
by
like
the
it's
way?
even that good.
Because I was gonna say, like, I
Um
didn't find any bugs and the performance was pretty steady. So, um, you know, it's sad that that's the bar we're at for reviewing a game, but shout out to them for shipping a like finished product.
it's Unreal 5 too.
Yeah, yeah, break that stereotype. I can tell some of the
I've not
particle effects feel very like, it feels like, they were conservative with some of the art stuff where they're like, let's not push the particle effects too far because we don't want to have to optimize, we don't have to like re-optimize it. And I'm like, so it's like I can taste the Unreal Engine, but do what you need to do to make a game that runs smoothly.
yeah, and I mean that's the thing is that there have not been a lot of games coming out made on the Unreal Engine that look this good and run this well at launch.
Yeah, it definitely looks like an Unreal Engine game, but I'm like, that works. They've taken the photorealism and they said, yeah, we're going to do that, and then we're going to introduce this like cosmic horror. um
Yeah, I think honestly that very much speaks to the quality of their concept art.
yeah, yeah.
Like on the concept level, their art is amazing. Actually, that's another quick thing that I want to give credit to these devs for. They've been doing these little announcements on the Steam page that are specifically repping members of their team that
Mm,
are just members of the team and giving like a photo of them, a little interview, like an internal interview with them, basically showing a handful of like their portfolio work essentially, and just going, "Hey, here are some of the cool people that made this game. Check out our UI designer.
yes.
Isn't our concept artist amazing? Our sound guy, fuck."
It's really cool. I'm yeah, it's just so nice to see a game finished to what feels like a complete vision. Like, at the end of the day, it is art. Every player is going to have a different experience, but I can recognize that it seems to have accomplished the vision they set out. And it's, really, what more can you ask than that? So,
Honestly,
the sound of those rods sliding into their locks, also good. Really nice. Um,
mm,
yeah, I mean, I think that's hell is us.
yeah,
Um, which,
yeah.
how are we
If
doing for? Oh, beautiful.
yeah, and yeah, if anyone likes the sound of what this is based on what either of us have to say, frankly, maybe there's something that you said that was either a positive or a negative that didn't speak to me, and someone's like, "Oh my god, I've been waiting for a game like this." I love sometimes hearing someone criticize a game and going, "You mean it's real?"
Look, I mean, yeah, I want to, I think it's obvious to us, but for anyone who's maybe not listened to much before, like, the criticism it's analytical criticism, right? Like, I want to point things out for us to acknowledge so that we can be better game designers, and maybe to extend that as a warning. Don't make the same mistake I did. Um, But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think you'll always be able to criticize any form of art. So I mean,
Yeah.
no harm by it. Again,
Oh, 100%.
I'm happy that the devs were able to make a game and publish it. That alone is a feat, and I hope that they are. I hope the studio's good. They seem to be good.
Yeah. They
Um,
seem to be doing pretty well.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. I'll say this. I'll say this. If if anyone likes the sound of what this is and thinks that they're going to have an all right time the with the issues that Dolph has outlined, or is particularly drawn to this story and world, I think that this is definitely a game that's well worth giving it a shot if it sounds if it intrigues you. That's the way I would describe it. This is a game that you should definitely try if it intrigues you.
mhm.
And I think the only other piece of advice I guess I would have, especially after this discussion, is yeah, take your time with it.
Take your time. Don't play it in 2 weeks. It's not. It's, you don't have to review it on stream. It's okay. you take it. I don't know. I am torn though because I did. While I did feel the time pressure, I also felt like if I was going to leave it too long, I would forget things. Um, so I don't know. Maybe grab a friend and have a friend sort of backseat, take notes, and have someone who can refresh your memory on things. Uh,
Honestly, I think that I think that there is actually a degree to which this, as like either a game to play with friends or a game to live stream,
yeah,
is it's very strong for those, particularly because there are some really big moments that can occur in this game. There's some moments that will definitely shock you.
yeah, and I think as
Both
yeah, I think as
yeah,
we've
like
found out, like this game is really complex, and so the more people you can have contributing their points of view and their takes on it, I think the better.
yeah. I hold on. Can you hear me right now?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, the visuals on the stream have frozen for me.
Oh.
It's probably fine. But yeah, because yeah, I think it was like, was it last night or very recently? River and I did uh the fight to obtain the keystone of ecstasy.
Yeah.
That was such a shock to the system in so many ways.
Yeah, I agree. I one of those moments was like, this didn't come off right for me due to circumstances,
Mhm.
but love that
Makes a
they're
lot of sense.
trying things out and doing things differently. And um yeah, the not to spoil it too much, the Keystone of Terror um had a similar sort of like we're gonna really change up the gameplay for this. Um so look forward to that when you get there. I do want to hear an update from you though. Not next stream, but at some point in the future when you've played more and eventually when you complete it, because having completed it, I think there's more stuff that you will enjoy, and I would love to hear your thoughts.
Interesting. Well, yeah. I it's interesting to hear you say that, because I think that that honestly says so much about the ethos that we approach these streams with and approach these discussions with, is we can look at this and go, did this thing work for me? Not necessarily. Based on what you've said, you'll love it.
Yes, and also at the
And
end
I
of the
think
day,
that's good. I think
I'm
that's
glad I
good.
played it.
Yeah.
Um, it might not have been exactly for me as you might have thought when you recommended it, but I am still glad that I played
Mm,
it. So,
yeah. I can at least say I can definitely understand where the misinterpretations on taste were here, and that's an interesting thing to note. Is like I can definitely see why I recommended it to you,
mhm.
and I now have better tools to recommend things to you in the future.
Yippee! I love
Which I
recommendations.
will I am very glad I am annoying about giving recommendations on games to people.
No, I think there's something special about being recommended something. It's such a like, you know, there's the surface level like, oh, it's nice, like you thought of me and thought I might enjoy something and want me to have a good time. But the like weird human aspect of like forming a connection through that. I will leave it there because we've
Yes.
run out of footage, and that feels like such a
Mm.
fitting point to end on.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a
Um,
little retrospective and stuff. It's good.
yeah. So that was Hell Is Us. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for contributing in chat or lurking in the background. Sorry that the frames are dropping. I will investigate some of my settings. Hopefully, it didn't seem too bad. I've just checked over, and the bitrate seems to be relatively okay. Um, we will be live next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about.
We'll
Um,
figure something
we'll
out.
figure something out. If you want, you can go to the Discord. Oi, 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 oi. You can join the Discord. Feel free to add any comments, um, whether it's about this or if you have any ideas what we could talk about in the future. Um, that is the Chronoboros Discord, where you'll get updates about these streams and the social media stuff I post in relation to Arvo. That's all of the end of stream plugging things that I need to do. I will be live on Wednesday, 2 days from now, around the same time, a little bit earlier actually, on Chris's channel, The Ludic Lens. Little spoiler, but I think we're talking about Souls-like combat design, so kind of similar to some of my critiques. Yeah, that's all. Yes,
Yep.
I have
Yep.
definitely
Again,
not
I hate
streamed
when you
much
tell me
before.
what's I hate when you tell me what's going on Chris's streams because almost always when you mention it, I'm like, no, I want to weigh in. I have opinions.
Yeah, yeah. Chris is good at finding some of those topics. But yeah, so that's that. We
Forces
will.
of the universe are telling me to shut up, and I don't like it.
All right. Yeah, thank you for joining. I'll see you all next time.
It's been good.